Today we're going to be reacting to the Volvo 850 story. The story of the British Touring Car Championship and Volvo's return to it with the 850.
The Volvo 850. It was the automotive equivalent of a Nokia phone.
True.
Practical, safe, and virtually indestructible.
True. The Volvo's, Volvo to this day, and I really, it's more of a Swedish automotive engineering. They took their safety extremely seriously, not just with Volvo. Volvo is some people forget Volvo was even Swedish to begin with. I've known way too many people who said, "Oh, I thought that was German." I'm like, why would you say that? Of course, a lot of people are idiots. But Saab, for example, Saab was another great example. Now, while Saabs are really weird and strange looking, being from a company that still builds airplanes, the Swedes take their safety very seriously. In fact, Volvo invented the 3-point seatbelt and got it when they made the patent for it. They then sold it and made an open free use patent so that every manufacturer could use it, insisting that no one should be priced out of safety. They also engineered multiple other safety constraints and components, including rearward-facing child seats and the earliest concept of backup cameras and early lane assist alert systems. A lot of stuff that we would take for granted now was pretty much pioneered and developed by Volvo. But Volvo, especially, was known for also their reliability. And the 240s, prior to the 850 family, because the 850 was the replacement for the 240, and would come with a new modular white block family. The 240s would choose the red block, and the reason why they're called the white and red block is that the new modular family was in a complete sheer sheened aluminum alloy that looked white, as opposed to the red blocks, which were a cast iron design, engine block, and cylinder head, but they were painted red from factory. So they were called and dubbed the red blocks. And the reason why the red blocks are they're typically called B16s and B18, B20 motors, not to be confused with Honda's B series motors. The Volvo motors, the reason why those 4 cylinders are so stupidly powerful is that there's 2 reasons. One, they were from factory designed to be understrained and underpowered, only really getting the car to where it needs to go. Volvo was trying to sell on practicality and safety and not performance. Despite the turbo models actually being able to put out high outputs of power, they still detuned them from factory. But the main reason the 240s were so reliable and robust is that Sweden is practically second to none when it comes to metallurgy. And when it comes to them developing the engine block, Swedish iron and Swedish alloy is stupidly robust and strong. In fact, you can go get an engine block sleeved at a typical machine shop, and most machine shops that are equipped with tools with the equipment for it will sleeve a typical aluminum engine block. Maybe they'll even sleeve an iron block too. They won't touch Swedish ones. I got told you have to go to a place that has CNC milling machines, because even the aluminum alloy is so hard to cut through. We'll be here for days to do 1 cylinder. So if you wanted your work to be done, you have to get CNC milled, because that's just how strong the aluminum alloy is on these Swedish cars. And even the old iron blocks, even the iron's far more stronger. That's just Swedish iron right there. And the thing is, the 240s were extremely strong. And so when the 850 came along, which was now a front-wheel drive variant which is now the new front-wheel drive successor to the 240, which was rear-wheel drive, the 850s were, I guess by Volvo's term, advanced and sleek, but still pretty square, boring, robust. But they were second to none in safety. They have probably one of the highest safety ratings of cars of a car model of all time. Even during its time and era, their crash safety ratings are phenomenal. And I will say the 850s are quite a nice little car. From a a casual enthusiast, if you're not looking for any performance, an 850 is the way to go. And that 5-cylinder was the first 5 cylinders for Volvo's new family were placed in those motors, and the 5-cylinder would become a staple of Volvo for the longest time. In fact, it's still remembered. The 5-cylinder Volvos are still to this day the tuning staple of the Volvo community. The 240s, yes, maybe grandfathered in, but and have started a lot of it. But the 5-cylinders is what really took it to the next level.
It just turned on and worked.
Yeah.
The estate version was.
Now, some people, of course, will see this and go, "That's boring. That's an ugly car." Ugh. No, it's beautiful. And Volvo, especially around this time, we're going away from less drab colors. They were starting to bring out these beautiful Orinoco blues and aqua teals, passion red, different forms of. I mean, their color palettes were just stupendous. I've seen many of them. They're purples for the C70s to die for. They're far better than the Nissan Midnight Purple. They are to die for. Absolutely stupendous and gorgeous in their appearance. And I will say, what people don't realize is that from factory, Volvo has an in-house team that makes these wheels, that designs wheels from factory. And we don't just say, oh, they're these wheels from this car, or like they're like a BBS-based model. No, each wheel has a name to it, a actual title given to a wheel. There's Naus wheels. These are not Naus. I can't remember what these ones are, but there's Naus wheels, NAOS. There's Styx wheels. I actually have I have a 17-inch Styx for my winter wheel set. There are Canopus wheels, which are rally wheels, and they are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous looking. But the classic, straightforward, easy best looking for tuner wheels and just for the sport models were the R-Design Pegasus wheels. They were 5-spoke wheels with an R engraved into the into the spoke that ran down by the air valve. And they are just gorgeous, especially when painted up with a nice light gray matte finish. They are beautiful wheels, and they go splendidly on these cars. They sit well and truly beautiful in these cars. I'd say definitely go look into that. Like, if you want good wheels, also the cool thing too is that almost from 1992 till now, all Volvo wheels are the same lug nut pattern, 5x108. So this lug nut pattern was also used by Ford for their C platform and World platforms like the Fusion and Focus and Escapes and Edges, which is just, like, okay, that who cares, right? Why would I put Volvo wheels on that? Well, the thing is, Ford owning Volvo in the late 90s and 2000s, or having ownership of Volvo, they also owned, at the time too, Jaguar. They also owned Land Rover as well. And so you could take 5x108 wheels from Jaguars or Lincolns or Land Rovers and put them on your Volvo. And if you want to go the full mile, another car that has 5x108 lug sets is the Ferrari F40. So I could grab Ferrari F40 Competizione wheels and put them on a Volvo. The Italians be damned. I'm putting your wheels in a far more sexier car.
Perfect for comfortable cruising, transporting your entire studio apartment, and racing?
Yep.
Yes, racing. In 1994, Volvo entered the British Touring Car Championship.
I've seen so many homages to these cars on different models too. Not just A50s. I've seen V50s and V70s dressed up to look like these cars. These with the same livery and everything.
With two of the most unlikely vehicles ever to compete in wheel-to-wheel racing. From its eyebrow-raising shape to its brilliant rule-bending engine.
Let's go back.
From its eyebrow-raising shape to its brilliant...
Look at that. Look at that inlet. Look at this. Tom Watkins Racing. TWR. and I'm pretty sure he'll talk about this. I mean, he's gonna talk about this. I know that for a fact. But this engine here was a piece of just motorsports art. 5-cylinder 20 valve. What they did to it was just over the moon to get this to where this is the power it would need to make. But individual throttle bodies right here. Oh god, look, just look at the architecture of it. It's beautiful. Of course, the additional oil baffle here with the expanded coolant tank. Things to help it out, but just look at this massive inlet. Oh, and just the timing belt cover, the case, and it's so simplistic, and I love it.
Wheel-bending engine? This car's story is one of quite literally not having your head screwed on straight, in the best way possible. So how did it perform? Why was its engine's legality questioned every race? And why the massive stuffed dog?
Oh yeah, I forgot this too. I think this was BTCC back in the day. These were Scottish drivers, I believe they had for their team. I mean, you can say by the... He's definitely wearing the plaid. So, yeah, no, they're rocking the sheepdog. Oh yeah, that tells me everything.
Let's find out.
Or are they Welsh, is my question.
Before we get into the brazen engineering, you're probably wondering how the idea even made it out of the boardroom in the first place.
Shouldn't have.
And for that, we need to go back to the 80s, when Volvo decided to hit their competitors over the head with a brick.
Oh yeah, see, what people don't realize is that while BMW and Mercedes would end up duking it out in the 80s for touring car championships, Volvo destroyed the Germans for 2 years. Because when they brought in the turbocharged 240 series, it completely shook the whole game up. Smaller engines, less regulations placed on them because of their lack of displacement, because turbochargers were not a concept in the touring car championship yet as it's a full-blown competitive angle. But when Volvo did it, they just wrecked the competition.
A flying brick.
Look at this.
The Volvo 240 Turbo was a crowd favorite in the European Touring Car Championship, collecting multiple wins and the Drivers' Championship in 1985. But just as quickly as the car dominated the touring car scene, it faded away when Volvo decided to stop racing altogether after the 1986 season. In just a few short years, Volvo's public image went from sliding around flame-spitting turbocharged monsters to building boring and safe rectangles to haul around your IKEA furniture with.
I mean,
it was an image of muted.
There's nothing really wrong with it because they were doing affordable luxury, nice compact cars or mid-sized cars that could just do the family load. This is when people are still having large families, and I think we should go back to this era. Like, I know a lot of women will see these Volvos and kind of go, that's not for me. But Volvo up until the last wagon they've had in the form of the V80. I don't know, it was the V8. It was the V90. There was the V90 wagon. It's one of the most. Still was just pure sex appeal. It was just pure sex appeal. Nothing else to it. And that's something that you don't see in family wagons. Of course, family wagons are almost dead and gone. The only really companies that are making them are luxury brands. But I used to work on them too. I love driving them. They're athletic, they're agile, and the T8 Polestars. Oh, I get Volvos are safe, but when you have a sub 4 second 0 to 60 in a family wagon, it just hauls ass. It was just instantaneous torque. And granted, it was a hybrid system, but that instantaneous torque off the hop, oh god, just took your ass away. Oh man, pure sex appeal.
Good colors and good fuel economy that Senior Vice President Martin Rybeck decided it was time to change.
Yeah, that's the thing. What also you got to realize here with motorsports is that it is the crux of engineering to be put to the test. It's the crux of change for the automotive industry. You have to go into motorsports with every single model of your car, and of course, if you're doing Formula One, you're going to make your Formula One car, but when you're doing touring cars especially, that's where you really put your vehicles to the test in engineering for upgrading over the model years and modifications for the next generation of cars. That's where you want to go to. Every single legendary car was from some racing event and had a road car placed in that too. But the main thing is you also got to realize is that you can't just have a Halo car without developing all the R&D from the ground up. Having even racing series with the smallest ship boxes your company makes still leads down into building the ultimate Halo car. Dodge for the longest time was building K cars in the 80s. The K series, the K car series, not the KEI that we think of with the cute little Japanese ones, but the actual Lee Iacocca's K front-wheel drive platforms. And when they started making hot models for them, they were racing them in American Trans Am series and touring car series. That led to the crux in R&D for Dodge to slowly, and working with Mitsubishi over time, not just recuperate their wealth, but to finally have the tuning knowledge and prowess to put that into the Viper. Another example was the genesis of the Honda NSX was from the Honda City 2 actually, Gen 2 City, and the engineers on a night project decided to rip the front engine out and move it and do some work to move that engine over to the rear of the car, this little city hatchback, and make it mid-engine rear-wheel drive. By just like doing what Peugeot did or Renault did with the mid-engine VR6. No, was it? No. Anyway. My case still stands that Honda with the Gen 2 City, when they did that for the NSX project, it was keeping the power level the same, but using all what they learned from suspension that they used to build even this tiny little shitbox K car, when it was even a front-wheel drive platform, make it handle as well as it did. And then when they moved the engine to the rear, they said, okay, now we have a Genesis platform to build off of, and if we can make a much larger, much more powerful car that can handle like this, we have a winner on our hands. And that's how the NSX came about to be. A lot of Halo cars would not be born. A lot of the legends that we know and praise, especially with JDM or want to throw money at, would not exist to this day if it were not for little ship boxes and small, compact engineering cars that we tune and build over time. That's why a lot of modern-day Halo cars don't have that same soul, because they weren't built from the same Genesis.
Volvo was going to return to racing, and if he had anything to say about it, they were going to make an entrance. Mm-hmm. The crosshairs were set on the 1994 season of the British Touring Car Championship, and the weapon selected was the 850, an unassuming, sensible commuter car.
Yeah.
So in the early 90s, Volvo dialed up Stephenson Automotive and asked them to prototype a race-ready version of the 850. The story goes that the initial intent was to race the saloon version, which, for you fellow Americans, means sedan. But when the company came to pick up a car at Volvo's factory, only estate models were available.
Honestly, the better choice. Not in terms of performance, but definitely in terms of marketability. Because, as we know, states, the V and these, Volvo would later drop the numerics, the complete numerics, and have a hybrid between alphabetics and numerics for their car naming concepts, which they still have nowadays. The V stands for versatility for the estate models, or the wagons, I guess, if you want to make it easier for yourself. But what I'm trying to get at here is that, remember, in Touring Car Championship, sedans and, I guess, sedan coupes or sedan, they're still considered saloons, but the two-door versions of them, which were a dying breed but still around, were, of course, the more performance-oriented model. That makes the most sense when you're going onto a track. You want to have the least amount of weight. You want to have not just the least amount of weight, you also want to have the least amount of topside weight, too. And the saloon on the touring, in terms of touring cars, was the best option. Now, hatchbacks were really good, too. Actually, hatchbacks are really dominant, but in terms of the mid-size touring cars, which the BTCC was typically fielded of, it was either saloon or, your two-door saloons. But in terms of marketability, right, the family hauler that could have far more space and carry far more cargo, flying around a track, that definitely gets everyone's eyes and looks at you. That gets everyone's attention. So it's kind of ingenious, man. So maybe it's from off the concept. I don't buy the story of it was just like the only thing that came from factory. I don't buy that. This is probably planned from factory as a marketing. This is probably planned as a marketing strategy.
So that's what they took. Now, whether that's true or not is anyone's guess, but a wind tunnel test later on did show the estate making slightly more downforce than the saloon due to its long, flat roof.
That's true, because also you remember, in terms of aerodynamics, like you have the immediate drop-off towards the rear of any hatchback, or especially with estate wagons. So typically air force and airflow will go down and push on the rear of the car when it comes to that end drop-off point, either holding the car down straight without any form of deviations in its flow. That's why typically, that's why also with hatchbacks, you typically want to have a little spoiler too to keep that air going so it doesn't have an immediate cut and drop point. Because if you do that, you remove the amount of downforce and even downforce you'd want on the rear, so your rear end doesn't come off on you. That's typically what you'd see. That's why hatchbacks typically have spoilers on them.
But even if that was the case, you'd be crazy to think.
Look, it doesn't even have but these wagons, dude, they don't even have spoilers. Like, look at that, just straight across.
That the estate was the faster choice between more weight in the rear and the added drag that came from its body shape.
Yeah.
So why on earth did they pick it? One word: marketing.
Exactly.
Built a car that's a step above the rest. It's a real humdinger, yeah, we put it to the test. Got the looks and the feel. Got the power for a load. And we put it all together. Yeah, we put it on the road.
Oh my god. Fuck. Remember... How long did that trend of... I mean, of course, there's always corny raps and corny shit that you still hear to this day, but that very simplistic, rustic... still wearing the bucket hat era of corny marketing rap and like outreach rap you'd see in schools. That extended from like 1991 or 92 all the way into like, not even earlier, back in the late 80s, all the way into like the mid to late 2000s. It was, and that style was still around. Like I still remember hearing like PSA or like, you know, safety raps like that, even into like late 2000s. Like that was, yeah, it's quite obnoxious, right? It's still something we would still kind of picture.
In a field filled with only saloons, an estate car hopping curbs and attacking.
Look at that!
In a field filled with only saloons, an estate car hopping.
That's a fucking statement right there. That is just cinema. That is cinema right there.
Curbs and attacking apexes would get more attention than ABBA in the late 70s. And to be sure they maximized the effect, Volvo decided to keep their wild stunt a secret. But not just from competitors and the public. They even kept their own drivers in the dark.
Oh no.
Take it from Rickard.
That's the worst thing you could ever do. That's one of the worst things you could do for a driver. I at least want to know what the hell I'm getting into before I even see a car. Just describing something over the phone is not going to help me. Like, you need to tell me the model, make, and I need to know what the hell I'm getting into before I start driving something.
Rydell, a 26-year-old karting and formula racing phenom, who was hired to drive one of the two entries. When I signed up around Christmas 1993, I didn't know about the estate plans. If I'd known, I would probably have hesitated. It was lucky I didn't know,
and again, there's
he
that
said.
gamble.
The other driver Volvo selected was Jan Lammers, whose vast experience in F1, Le Mans, and IndyCar made him a formidable opponent, even if he'd be stuck driving an estate. And so the organization was coming together. But what about the cars?
Oh no.
Their development was a job reserved for Tom Walkinshaw Racing, one of Volvo's main rivals in the 80s.
Oh, going from the rival to their builder, that's a hell of a transition.
Now turned ally, who was hired to engineer and...
Look at everything here. It's just beautiful this is. Oh, it's so gorgeous.
Field the entries. If you've ever seen this car, then you know what TWR was capable of. So surely an estate car wouldn't be too much of a challenge to build, right? They started off doing all the normal race car things, gutting and caging the estate, and even lowering the position of the driver by extending the pedals and steering column.
Okay. Good choice.
BTCC rules limited engine displacement to just 2 liters.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's going to be a bit of a problem because, well, actually, not really. A lot of the early 5 cylinders were small displacements.
And turbocharging wasn't allowed.
Yeah, they banned it after because of the dominance from the 80s era of turbocharging. It was just insane. That's, literally, of course, because it was mainly because the Germans wanted to just hightail it out of there after after Volvo introduced turbocharging, because it was just like, it was such a knockout for them that they couldn't get their heads around it.
So TWR took advantage of the engine bay space occupied by a turbo in the factory 850.
That is actually partially incorrect. Because, am I not mistaken that it was late 94, early 95 is when the T5R came to fruition. And the T5R, the first, was a limited edition run with a turbocharged 5-cylinder. Because the stock model 5-cylinder only made like 132 horsepower. It was naturally aspirated, of course. It was just like it was an economy motor. It's torquey, shared the workload, it wouldn't strain itself. The first T5R, 1995, or late 94 and early 95, 254 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. That is 1995 we're talking about here. Front-wheel drive sedan that was keeping up with lower-end halo cars coming from out of the JDM scene, like smacking down and tapping on the shoulder of V8 Camaros, of V8 Firebirds. Like what the hell are we talking about? The smacking on V8 like GT Mustangs. Like, we're talking a Volvo. Front-wheel drive, boring commuter car that was kicking ass like that. And not just in the straightaways too, it could handle. And because they were using the sedan model for those too. And they introduced the mustard yellow color, which is, they only really did it for the 850s, unfortunately. They haven't really brought back the mustard yellow color. That's one of those beautiful colors Volvo ever did. And later on, because of the success of the T5R, they would actively make a follow-up rendition, but it was only 232 horsepower out of a larger displacement T5 motor that was lower compression. It was mainly because they want to have the T5Rs be the one-off special car, and then they realized the success of it. They were like, well, we have to keep this still reserved for the people who reserved and bought them, so we might as well just make a lower-end power one, but still more displacement, right, and more room for modification. So in the end, I guess really it was still a matter of high performance would still be there if you wanted it to be. But at this point in time, they didn't really, I don't think they had put the T5s on the road yet for the 850. And that T5 moniker, and I guess for the American audience, they wouldn't understand this, but in the UK, the police force would end up using, the UK police would end up using, for highway patrol, the S60s and V70s for their police interceptors, earning the nickname of the Terminator 5 because of how much prowess those motors and those cars had in terms of interception for highway, for the for high speed pursuit. They're pretty robust, pretty good motors, and pretty stable platforms in terms of high speed operation.
By using a 6-speed sequential gearbox that mounted the engine lower down and further behind the front axle.
Okay, yeah. So moving the tranny, or I guess maybe, okay, yeah, I know Twitch can get up here because I say tranny, but fuck off. It's mechanical terms. It's like when people get pissed off for saying you have you retard a motor, or you have a slate, because they fucking changed up in the U.S. Army's manuals for the Humvees, and then they changed up the slave cylinder to be freedom cylinder, just because it was we're so scared about offending people with this. It's an engineering term. It's a slave. It's a slave to the master cylinder because it does all the work for the master cylinder. The master cylinder basically controls its operation. It's to amplify the output. Oh shit! I gotta hang on. I'm speaking on my ass again. Brainy not working too well. Let me just give me a sec. But like it. But like in terms of just like. Here we go. But in terms of the transaxle, they of course. I mean, I guess the sequential does do that. Like it would, I guess it does lower in the gearbox. So you can see here they really had to lower that motor down, especially since it's so much more compact. You're not as highly raised up as with the typical 5-speed or 6-speed gearbox. It was 5 speeds around this point. It was the T56 motor. The T55 the transmission they had in there, I believe. Yep. Slave cylinder converts hydraulic pressure into mechanical force. There we go. That's what I had to remember it for. And it's used to actuate a mechanism. Yeah, exactly. So it is just used in this. Yeah, it's just used to do the work of what the master cylinder essentially forces it to do. Yeah, so it's not. I mean, fucking how we have to bundle our terms up for these things, right?
The improved weight distribution and incredibly low center of gravity for an estate saw it shaping up to be quite competitive. Until the biggest disappointment of the build was discovered. The engine's power output, or lack thereof. After downsizing the 850's factory inline 5 to the required 2-liter displacement, the best it could muster was 260 horsepower. Knowing they'd be going wheel to wheel with much more aerodynamic cars that averaged around 285 horsepower, TWR knew their hopes of winning would be dead on the asphalt unless they could find a way to squeeze out more power. And speaking of asphalt, I'd like to take just a brief moment to tell you about this video's sponsor, Asphalt 9 Legends. Asphalt 9 Legends is a free-to-play arcade racer available on iOS, Android, Xbox, Switch, and PC. One of my favorite things about this game are the ridiculous stunts you can pull off that would be very much against the rules of any actual racing series. And the laws of physics. Someone in your way? No problem. Take them out with a 360 knockdown maneuver. Want to barrel roll a Bentley through the air above the streets of Japan? Why not? Nobody's stopping you. One of the first things you'll notice playing Asphalt 9 are the visuals. The graphics are quite sharp and vibrant, especially for something you can play on the go. And if you're not good at racing games, don't worry. Asphalt 9's got you covered. The touch drive control scheme lets you enjoy all the action.
Sorry, I just had to go through my old books here. Because I want to make sure I'm explaining the terminology as simplistic as possible. I know what it is, I can't bundle up my words. A slave cylinder is what it does, is what it converts, it converts hydraulic pressure into mechanical force. So that's the master cylinder, and the slave cylinder, what it does is it's the recipient of said hydraulic pressure being turned into mechanical force. The slave cylinder does the work of the mechanical force. Typically, you think of it like a brake system where you apply the brake pedal applies pressure into the master cylinder where the fluid reservoir is. Said fluid gets pushed through the system and it pushes up against the pistons at the end of the calipers, or the slave in the drum brakes, which expands out the shoe or clamps the pads in with the caliper. Pretty simple, right?
With easier controls. But if you're up for the challenge, you can turn it off and put your car's fate entirely.
It's so stupid because I get it, like a VTuber who wants to talk about cars, who knows about a lot about cars. The thing is, sometimes my mind goes a million miles per hour. I need to go back and just go through my sources just to read through everything. Make sure I'm explaining it correctly, because I don't want to be an asshole and just start talking out of my neck like you see a lot of people confidently do. And ideally, if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you shouldn't be teaching it at all. That's the way Albert Einstein, in quotations of what he spoke of, if you can't explain certain theories to a 6-year-old, you can't explain anything, or you can't teach it at all. You shouldn't teach it at all, because then you get lost in the sauce. And if you want to overcomplicate everything, by all means, go ahead and do that. The reason why I wanted to just talk about this is because I also learned this when I was in my college for the automotive trade. It's just things you want to help people along when it comes to understanding cars. Because I do want to make some videos about automotive repair, and I'm probably going to do some guides and tutorials how to do so over time.
Really in your hands. There are over 200 licensed cars to collect and drive across a wide range of levels inspired by real-world locations. With tons of single-player and multiplayer events, and vehicle customization options, you'll have a hard time running out of things to do in this game. You can use the QR code on screen now, or the link in the description to download it. So with that, let's get back to TWR, and the dilemma of their underpowered engine. As Smokey Unick, the most notorious rule-bending racer, once said, "You don't race cars, you race the rulebook." So TWR went...
See, I respect a good cheater sometimes. Like, when it's a cheating in tandem with the sanctioning body, or, you know, cheating in terms of, like, you know, you're cheating the stock market, right, by being an inside trader, Nancy Pelosi, you tend to get with, you know, no one, of course, no one's going to respect that, because you literally are in control and can just hand wave away you either breaking actual laws or just the rules of the game. But Smokey Unick, he's a man I'd say people should look into. He's a master class of fucking with people. He's actually a guy I do want to cover too. He's actually a legend in terms of, and I do respect him and his engineering prowess to screw the rule book
through the series regulations with a fine-tooth comb. As it turned out, the secret to being competitive was all in their heads, quite literally.
Yeah.
See, one of the major shortcomings of the stock 5-cylinder engine was the angle of its valves in the cylinder head. They were set at 58 degrees between each intake and exhaust valve, with port geometry to match. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into optimizing a cylinder head, but in the simplest sense, the better it flows, the more power you can make.
Exactly.
When we look at airflow in general, the straighter the flow path and the fewer turns the air has to navigate, the better. So if the team could make a new head with the valves and ports at a steeper angle, they could make more power. Except
you need to have larger ports, and you need to have a smoother, more angled entry point. If you look at how Hondas are, they're fairly angular in terms of their designs for their high revving motor flow, like for the K20s especially. And that's not including the variable valve time that goes into the VTEC system that runs into that as well. But that's mainly just change up cam lobe and change the cam lobe size, which is just used to open up the valves longer depending on how your operation of driving is. You know, whether you want to be at lower RPM and have more casual city driving, or if you want to be at higher RPMs within race mode. But ideally, if you look at a stock Honda ported head, it's quite aggressive off the hop already. It's just through good engine management and fine-tuning, it was made to be usable for the city streets.
that would have been illegal. The regulations required you to use a production cylinder head with the stock intake port location and valve angle retained.
Exactly. Okay. So that is the problem with BTCC, is that they did want to use they would be highly souped up in terms of internals for the cars, but you had to retain the same stock engine, which is a problem with the T5s, considering they're very much under-square design. They're long stroke, great for torque, great for low end power, but they don't have a lot of RPM. They don't rev that high. Sorry. And they don't make a lot of high end horsepower. The naturally aspirated models is what I'm talking here. To get that, you'd either have to shorten the engine block, stroke the engine block, which would break the rulebook tool. That's not a stock motor anymore. You'd have to change the engine block, which once again breaks that. So what you'd have to do is work with the valve, with the cylinder head. However, as they're saying, you can't use anything different. And right here, port size may be changed, but the port centers at the manifold must remain the original size, give or take 2 millimeter difference. Or I guess in this case, above of 2 millimeters maximum, to incentivize higher flow size for these performance cars to rev higher, because they need to have more airflow in them to rev to higher RPMs to make more power, and of course have a longer power range, power band
relative to the head. But the rules did allow different camshafts, so TWR took a page out of the old muscle car guy playbook, choosing lifters 4 millimeters larger in diameter than factory.
Like 4 millimeters doesn't sound large on paper, but in terms of like machinists, that's fucking massive.
And camshafts with over double the amount of factory lift.
Yeah.
Lift is just a fancy word for how tall the lobed part of the cam.
Exactly. So, I mean, I could explain it better if I was given the time to, but the whole cam ratio is typically, you know, your ratio of the cam would be the lift divided by the base circle or the retention part of the lobe, of the actual camshaft itself. But of course, as he's saying here, very simplistically, that the lift or size of the lobe here, how far it touches down into the tappet of the actual valve, is how much lift you have onto that same valve. So more lift would incentivize longer valve opening, which you'd have to adjust with using the time shaft or the retard or advanced timing on the motor to allow far better flow onto the system for the engine to run.
Camshaft is. More lift means the valve will open further.
It opens further and opens longer.
Which means we can flow more air into the engine,
yes,
and ultimately make more power.
You can.
Simple enough. Until they figured out that such massive Uncle Sam approved cams were too big to mount in the factory head.
That's the problem. They're Volvo, having opened some T5s myself, they're quite large. They're quite small in terms of camshaft sizing. They're not very large lifters, especially with the turbocharged. Even with turbo models, the 2.5s I have, they're not very large.
Material removal from the head was allowed, so rather than stopping in their tracks, TWR just hacked off the stock part of the head where the camshafts were housed, and machined large billet carriers to hold the new cams.
Shit.
But as you might have guessed, there's no point in having such large cams if you're still restricted by stock valves and ports. Larger valves were also allowed, so the team machined out the bottom of the head to add some volume and fit them. To optimize flow of the intake air, the team machined back the face of the head where the intake manifold mounts, effectively shortening the length of the intake.
Shorter intake runners. How do you get more air in, or how do you have a better flow of air? Either A, carve and change the trajectory of the air, or B, shorten the distance it has to travel. Holy fuck, it's ingenious. And it doesn't break the rule book either, because they're not porting the head. They're not porting the intake. It's still the stock size intake. It's just they shortened the runner. They shortened the intake inlet.
Ports, and making them more vertical. But TWR wasn't done yet.
Yeah, of course, when you take more away, your angle is far more acute. It's more aggressive. So that makes better. Oh, so it flows better.
Remember that the rules about port location and valve angle were all relative to the head. Nothing specified how the head had to mount to the block, and this led to the team's most ingenious idea yet. They machined a wedge shape out of the head, seating it on the block at an angle.
That's ingenious.
Relative to the block, that got them an even more vertical intake port.
Air flows in, drops in, and it's taken. When the vacuum comes in for the intake stroke, it's at a far greater angle, has a sharper intake coming in, and then when they port in the inlet with the throttle bodies, it's a direct shot in from the actual intake, and it just, instead of having more angle that the air needs to travel, of course, loses its flow and velocity. They get more of it by just having a straighter angle and shot. Oh my god, it's ingenious.
And a shallower exhaust port.
Yeah, and then and then on the exhaust side too, because remember, to make the power, you have to have a higher flowing exhaust. The more exhaust you can get out, the more the less worries about having exhaust air already mixing in with your intake air on the intake stroke. So with that gone, flows better, and now with the exhaust and the shallower exhaust port has less room for the exhaust to travel, so more of it can get out faster.
all while maintaining the regulated factory head geometry.
Clever. Devilishly clever.
Final machine work to the pistons helped the engine achieve a 13.5 to 1 compression rate.
Oh fuck, yeah, of course in the running race field too, so I can go that high. Oh shit, that's beastly.
Over the stock non-turbo engines, 10.5 to 1.
Yeah.
As with any good story, there's a variety of accounts on how much power the improved engine actually made, ranging from 290 all the way up to over 300 horsepower.
That's pretty good for
But
natural
either way,
motor.
the 850 Estate was one of the most powerful cars in the field. It stunned the public, and pretty quickly faced criticism from its competition. Between its elaborate engine work and stuffed collie that rode along during parade laps, menacingly threatening the other drivers. Its legality was questioned at every race, but it was never outlawed, because there really wasn't anything illegal about it.
Yeah.
TWR had simply done a better job at reading the rules than anybody else.
Remember, the rule doesn't strictly state about something. You can get through it. You can get around it. Because they haven't thought of it being outlawed in the sport yet, in the sanctioning body. The rules can't stop me if you never made the rule in the first place.
But as much as I'd like to tell you that the car was a smashing success, its troubles started all the way back at the TWR factory.
No.
Between the hours upon hours of machine work and shiny new parts required to manufacture the heads, each head cost the team up to 15,000 British pounds, when factory heads could be had for just 200 pounds.
Jeez.
Accounting for inflation, that would have been the equivalent of spending almost 30,000 pounds on a single cylinder head. And as much as I'd like to tell you that the brilliant new cylinder head made the 850 so fast that it ran 5 laps ahead of everybody else, it didn't. The car was one of the fastest in a straight line,
of course.
but between its large frontal area, worse aerodynamics, and added rear weight, it simply couldn't navigate the turns as quickly as its competitors.
No.
And as luck would have it, circuits on the BTCC schedule have a lot of those. That being said though, the two gentlemen behind the wheel left nothing on the table and pushed each estate to the absolute limit. The car's best finish was 5th, with average finishes hovering between 11th and 12th each race. Rydell and
To the
Lammers.
size of the field, that's not that bad. That's like mid-range around the field, which is okay. I mean, once again, it's nothing podium, but
Finished 14th and 15th respectively in the Drivers' Championship, with Volvo taking 8th place in the manufacturers' standings,
Not bad.
only besting Nissan and Mazda. All things considered, those were some pretty respectable results after an 8-year hiatus from racing, let alone for being the only estate cars in the field. And 1994's partnership with TWR was only the beginning. Just 4 years later, Rickard Rydell took home the BTCC champion.
yeah, that's the thing. These S40s were monsters. These were just monsters. I know that for a fact. Unfortunately, our Mark 1 S40s and we only got one generation of the V40 too, the V40 as well. The Brits got the second gen V40, but Volvo, for some reason, I don't know why, they decided that instead of putting the modular into the new S40, because this would be the smallest compact one, and kind of how Volvo was really going into the compact scene hard, they thought they could go into it like with even smaller models, and these S40s off the hop were running Mitsubishi 4G63 turbocharged motors. So they were impressive and very tunable, but the problem is in North America, we only got them with automatics. We never got a manual with these things. They're reliable enough. I mean, it's a Mitsubishi motor, so it's cheap to fix, but they're just pretty boring over here. But what they got over there in England was a fairly lightweight sedan or even tiny estate. Because the V40 is almost 9-year hatchback, a 5-door hatchback, but has just enough extension on to be considered a wagon. So you have these fairly lightweight cars that were very tunable, could pack a major punch. And I'm talking about the BTCC one we have right here. This one was a monster.
Piloting the legendary S40. An exceptional exercise in racing the rulebook, the 850 Estate touring car was a lesson in perseverance, an excellent case study in marketing, and a reminder to never cut corners. unless those corners can get you some extra horsepower. Thanks for watching.
Oh, by the way, you want to know something about these 850s? They would rev up to 8,500 RPM. And how these things sound at 8,500? Oh man, I'm gonna play it. I gotta play this. Just listen to this noise. Let me just find a good one. Where's the original? Because like, there's so many replicas of these cars. I gotta find where the actual one is. Okay, this one is not the estate, but I believe this is a actual motor, like down to the motor replica. Okay. Just listen to that. I love the 75 cylinders so much. They're just the white box especially. That's just beautiful. Oh man, I wish Volvo made an actual high revving 5-cylinder. They would have been just splendid to drive. That's a real shame. The turbo ones aren't bad. They're really good too. I love mine, but I would have loved a naturally aspirated one outright. But these would probably be horrible to drive at low RPM in the city. My God, these would have been just unbearable. Let's see if I can find what the S40. Actually, I mean it's splendid, right? It's just such a beautiful car. I think that's good for the Volvo section here, because like that is just an immaculate model. And you can see where I really get my love and lineage for Volvos from. These are just something to behold. And even before the 240s, there was the 142, which was actually the original Volvo compact. And a parts supplier I use quite frequently, IPD USA. I'm not sponsored, but I must tell you about them. They have their original 140 Volvo 142 historic car that was the company's first race car. I got to show you this. This is why I love IPD too. They're one of my, for like OEM supplies, I prefer going to IPD. Now granted, I do use SCP Euro every so often, but IPD for me is like, I talk to the guys when I need technical advice or help, or like, hey, I got some problems, or like, what gasket would you recommend? They give me the good hookup. That's why I love them so much. Not sponsored though. Should clarify. This is from Shifting Lanes, by the way. The original That's enough. That's Shifting Lanes' video, by the way. They do some okay content, I would say. Of course, what I drive is a Volvo C30, which I shared yesterday on stream. T5. Let's get a good one for sound. And let's not get a Top Gear video because I don't want to get copyright struck. Let's use Car Cleaning Guru. I know he had a good audio. I know he had great audio for this. That's what I love. That's the sound I miss. That's the sound I want to drive again and have that ring in my ear. Oh yeah, that's euphoric to me. a Polestar one. He's got a Polestar edition. So I mean, far more rare. I love his diffusers too. Beautiful. Yeah, let's settle in. Meaty chop. I love the long chop it has. That's a stock. Oh, I know Car Clean Guru. He's only done bolt-on modifications. Maybe I don't even think he's even touched the injectors. I'm pretty sure he's just done full bolts, so exhaust, elevate intake manifold, which I would say is probably one of the most beautiful intakes for these motors there are. He's done, of course, I think it was DO88 plenum and DO88 D088 intercooler, silicone piping. I don't know. Sorry for the intake. And what else did he do? Usually I'm really good at doing this. But I think it's just done full bolt-ons. Turbo blow-off valve upgrade and bypass regulator upgrade. Typically, what you want to do is you want to get a good actuator with a harder spring set, which allows the turbo to be run at the KO4 to be run at its max boost pressure of 18 psi. The safe one for city driving. Listen to that. And also this camber, you can see right here, because he's got it lowered on lowering springs, which I'd highly recommend if you ever do get into a P1 model Volvo. Always go. I made a mistake, or not really a mistake. I've gone with B16 coilovers, really expensive. I prefer Bilstein B4 struts though for the front with some lowering springs, and Bilstein B12 PSS rear lowering shocks with lowering springs in the rear. That is a really good setup. That will carry you the whole distance. With these cars especially, you can wake them up with a front strut tower beam, strut tower bar, and an upgraded 30mm sway bar at the rear, and maybe a little crossbar you can get here for the rear of the car. That really wakes up the handling. Like these things handle like an all-wheel drive car. Like how Honda boys like claim their cars handle really well. These things are heavier than Hondas, yes, but they handle just as well with some very slight bolt-on modifications. But this here, especially the camber, this is stock from factory. And this is a problem with these. One of the problems I will say with the Volvos is that they have a negative 2.75 degree camber for the wheels from factory stock. Ideally, the adjustment angle is to get either bushings with the eccentric bolts on them that can go further than the stock ones to get it to negative 2.5, which is really far more suitable for city driving to prevent premature tire wear for these cars especially. Look at that. That's just aggressive. But I love that movement. I love that car's movement so much. It's just gorgeous. Now, granted, I've owned two of them, and I prefer the pre-facelift, which this one is not, because it's far more. It's got far more of a rounded front end, less angular headlights. It's very more of its time, but it's very stupendous in design. Not to say I don't like these designs here, but I do prefer the rectangular grille on the pre-facelifts. I will comment that the blow-off valve is a little too excessive for my taste. I typically go with a different release actuator. I don't typically go for a loud blow-off valve on mine. I have mine set to being very more timid and meek in terms of noise. I don't really care for the sound of turbos. I care for the sound of the motor. That's what I want to hear. If I do care about sound at all, for me, it's mostly about how it responds to me. but I can definitely tell he's shifting around 4,500, close to 5,000 RPM, which is definitely the peak power band for these cars. But when you get her up to 6,500, oh, she screams. She's howling away. Yeah, when you get them to like 6,500, they really howl.